morning, Mr. David.
Good morning, safety chick. You're looking brighter today, and your network seems to be on point because I can see all the stuff. You can see your usual McLean's. Should I call it Colgate smile? So on point. Yesterday we couldn't see that. so, so that is internet
Thank you so much. Yeah, it seems much better today.
Yeah, it's on your side today. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Good Morning Education Show. We are hoping to see Mr. Rotimi anytime, but that you just have to contend with me and manage. Let me try. What about the center? Yes. Okay. So you just have to contend with me. But welcome to the Good Morning Show. It's a good morning in nice and sunny Lagos. We had a bit of showers of rain yesterday, which was interesting. It's a bright morning this morning. And so we welcome you to the Good Morning Education Show, your morning tonic, and learning everything that's happening here. Of course, as usual, we have a wonderful, wonderful topic. All throughout this week, we started talking about teacher development yesterday, and we're going to another interesting topic for today. But as our custom, we'll start with the news. Chick, help us with the news.
Okay. So the headlines that I can see here, we have that JAMB opens up on the issue of the deadline for the 2020 admission exercise. So apparently candidates have been having some anxiety because, the plans changed last year due to uncertainties of the coronavirus. So that's one of the headlines that we hear.
I think one of the other things that was causing anxiety was with the name. Till they announced the extension yesterday, even your sister does not have NIN number, eh?
Are you serious?
I'm telling you. So, I too had a bit of anxiety, not too much, in terms of the fact that, the deadline was this February to get your NIN number. And, JAM also announced that you needed NIN for filling on the form. So I guess there's so many reasons for anxiety. We all know what happened last year. So anxiety is okay. But I think the good news is there has, been some communication just to, keep the nerves down. And it's important that during all this pandemic, the importance of communication, timely communication, is important. So it's important to keep on communicating, sending information out to all the candidates so they're also aware of all that needs to be done. So I will let them know from our end, just calm down. I saw one very interesting tweet. And the tweet was saying that, during the war years, we didn't go to school for 3 years. So that everyone should calm down. That's what the person was saying. You can imagine during the time of war, when the person was talking about the Bosnian War. So during the time of war, when there's really major issues, I'm trying to also imagine what would have happened during the civil war here in Nigeria. Those that would have been based in the East would have gone to school for a year, if not more, because the civil war was
disrupted.
Yeah. So in the end, we all survived. So everybody, I'll just encourage everybody this morning to take a chill pill, try and relax. All those things work out in the end. I know people that did JAM 1, 2, 3 times. I'm right at that time. It seemed like that was the worst thing that could have happened to them. But you know what? They've gone. They finished university. They've gotten jobs. Even those that did JAM only once, they've gone ahead and passed them. So let's not allow time. Let's not allow time get us worked up. All these things. It doesn't
put people under pressure.
Yeah.
I think another thing that can really, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think people are just, pressured with the fact. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can. Yes, I can.
Okay. I think people are pressured with the fact that time is going and they don't want to be delayed anymore, right? So I think what can help with that is, finding something tangible to do that would, increase your knowledge, make you more valuable, because the truth is the world is shifting, and it is shifting in such a way that you do not necessarily have to tie yourself to having a university degree. Having a university degree is very important, but in the meantime, you can do other things to add some value to yourself, and you might even get paid. I know a 300 level student who is working with one of the tech companies, and he's even earning more than some people that are actually full-time staff. This is him doing it on an internship basis. Do you see? But it's because he is valuable. He had learned all those necessary programming skills and stuff like that. So the organization was, in fact, they just like, oh my God, we've got a stand. They are trying to hold on to him. And so if the young people, or as many people that are interested in getting into school, they shouldn't see the delay as, oh, my life is wasting. Instead, fill it up with good activities that will add value to you, so that no matter what happens, you will just see that that period wasn't a waste. Yeah. So
Completely agree.
everybody just calm down and chill.
Honestly, they really need to calm down. I think another thing which was one of the headlines yesterday was, Uni Abuja students saying don't disrupt academic calendar, begs Uni Abuja as the student protest. I know that, and I read about it, on the show as well, saying that there might be a need, honestly, to do some adjustment. I was given the example of, I remember when I was in school, there was a particular strike. So we had been at home for a bit longer. By the time it was now time for the next batch to come in, well, maybe like 3 months away from when the next batch were meant to come in, they just merged 2 years, so that they got in a bit accelerated, and we that have been waiting just merged. In the beginning, we were all feeling sad, and we saying, "Which set are you? Which set are you?" Oh yeah, and
Everybody's blended.
yeah, but that didn't last long. We all ended up blended. It wasn't when this thing came out, and I remember truly that year it was a combination. So I think I hear the students, but I'm saying that in the end, let's all try not to push only ourselves agenda. Let's look at what's all in the best interest of everyone. I know that for some, countries, they're also saying it's not a 3-term year; it's more like a 2-term year. Just so not to put anybody under pressure. This term, I was specifically saying that this term, especially for those in the primary school, is a very short one. Because Easter is in the first week. I think Easter Sunday is on the 4th. So that means
Yeah.
all school.
I was just talking about Easter with my sister yesterday. Ash
Yeah,
Wednesday is on the 17th. Like,
yeah,
that's early.
that's early. It's early this year. So you can imagine what that means is that whether schools like it or not, they'll be going on break by the end of March. Uh, that's next month.
Yes.
That's next month. So if you didn't start early, like the schools in Port Harcourt that started on the 4th, if you started, most schools in Lagos started either on the 18th. Some I just resumed, like on the 23rd. So what I would just say is, let's calm down. Let's know that, let's not allow time to put others under pressure. Whatever they don't learn, you can say how to carry it over. You can think of merging the terms into two. So you might just say, the kids gone in 2 weeks break, and then when they come back, it continues. Maybe this summer will not be as long,
As long as we're
about, to do a bit of catch up on both sides. So I'll just say, everybody, calm down. Let's take a chill pill. No pressure, no pressure. Okay, let's
okay.
take.
So we just do one more news headline and focus on today's topic. And this one here is about the teacher retirement age. The past few months, the federal government has offered one deal after another to primary and secondary school teachers. And on Wednesday, January 20th, it announced a harmonized retirement age bill that will permit teachers to retire from service at age 65, not 60 as it is now. Yeah, that's
We spoke
retirement
about that.
age.
We spoke about that a bit yesterday. I like what Rhoda said yesterday. What Rhoda said yesterday is, don't make it make it a mandate, or it has to be. There should be some conditions tied to it. So yes, someone that is 65 might be in good health, might not be in good health, depending on a number of factors. So she's saying that don't make it just blanket in extending it. So let it be that there's an assessment that is done, an assessment that is done every year, whereby it looks as if are you physically, mentally, can you still take the rigor of doing that. Some people, I know, yesterday we were talking about one of the longest serving lecturers in Ibadan, University of Ibadan, and he died at 71. There's some people that, God blesses with good health, their eyesight still perfect, they still have the same energy level, so that's fine. But so even though we're extending it, we need to ensure that it's extended with some premises. It should not be automatic.
Okay.
It should not be automatic. So
Okay.
at 6 yes, it's extended. You know that if you have the strength, the health, you still have a lot of fuel in you, you can make it to 65. But there should be yearly assessment, to ensure that that's what's going to happen, so that it doesn't defeat the purpose. Because remember that the ultimate purpose of all this extension is to ensure that the deficit that we have in regards to teachers, we still can one way, do. And one of the ways to do it is to extend the retirement year, but it should be that the person still has something to give. I mean, there's some fantastic 70-year-old people. They're just, I'm like, God, bless me like
Yes,
that. When
physically
bless
fit. Physically fit, mentally sharp,
ah,
Yeah.
you know, I met someone. He's 80 something. He still can walk, move about. He's not wearing glasses. Everything is. I'm like, wow. I have to tell him that you are blessed with good health. You're blessed with good health. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you about, caution being taken into consideration when doing all these things, because the truth is different people have different, but somebody might just be waiting for that 60 to actually just stop and move on to something else. So if it is now extended, they may not want to continue, honestly, but maybe they will just manage because, so yes, those questions should be asked, and those that want to continue can continue, and then those that want to step out be allowed to step out honorably. Yeah.
Hey, she tried to sneak in, but I caught her as she was sneaking.
So I'm actually very
Welcome.
scattered, driving here and there, doing the various things. Started the day really early. I've been out on the road since morning. Yeah, I just
Wow.
jumping on your conversation. Really, yes, I agree with the fact that it's policies. Like we always say that policies are made for man. Like, and we can always adjust it, And so really, and good policies have one strong feature, that it's adjustable, that it's amendable. So, and it's fluid enough to take into consideration every um, body, every institution, everything that it needs to function effectively. So, with respect to those, should it be a choice? It's difficult to make policies stay in the world of I want to do it, I don't want to do it. It's very hard. Then that just have policies that are just open to choice. Can be very confusing. It can also be um, open for people to change them easily, or to jump. You know how to say we jump the gun. So, but it should definitely be flexible to allow setting certain requirements to pull through. So, yeah, totally in the world of agreeing with your ideas. All women in the house. Good morning, if you're.
Good morning,
Yes.
Rhoda. Good morning.
Girl
Nice to see
power.
you.
Good morning, our
Good
last
morning,
one.
Titi.
Hey,
And it looks like we have something going on with the red.
Exactly.
That's the red.
Everybody's on red.
That's
Except
exactly why I just had to bring it up. Like, they were all very red. It's the month of love, so
Yes, it is.
makes sense.
yeah,
Mom said,
month
It's
of
my
love.
birth month too.
Woo!
Oh,
you did not get the memo. Safety chick did not get the memo.
Safety chick.
I didn't get the memo.
He slept on the wrong side of the bed.
She
The
probably
maybe
hasn't
we
texted,
call 30 minutes after.
or she hasn't checked her
Oh my
Certainly,
messages
goodness.
yet.
certainly.
Yeah, that's a possibility because these days I don't check immediately.
Good morning, Rhoda. Thank you for joining us. You guys have come to add the flavor that we need to today's topic. And so without much ado, when I'm looking at the topic, I almost feel as if we should have had this topic first before we then talked about the development. But either which way, I think it's still fine. So, what is Let me kick Rhoda. I need to know that you're not running off, so maybe I should start with you because you can't disappear now. So let me start with you and say three things that I want us to attack. What exactly is teacher assessment? Why do schools need to do teacher assessment? What are the key elements of doing teacher assessment? Sometimes you can get away with academics. When people say they're doing assessment and it's an exam and there's no practical to it, I'm like, sometimes a bit taken off, or it doesn't have a lot of dimensions. What I mean dimensions to it is that there's your knowledge, there's the practical of what you do in the class. So what I want you to do as you talk about teacher assessment, what are the key elements that you feel that must be part of teacher assessment, not writing exams? So we'll start with you. Over to you.
Okay, okay. I think it's just really a splendid topic for today, and maybe really, you're really a teacher at heart, Titi. Maybe really what we should have done is actually look at assessment before development, right? Because it kind of like follows that sequence. Sorry, I had to take off my screen because my hands are shaky, and I'm in a very rocky road. So just as we are just as we assess kids, like looking out for learning outcomes and to see how they perform, with respect to what we have actually taught them. So we have expectations, we have goals, we have milestones, we have priorities, for students and pupils. I think it's not essentially different from what we are looking out for educators, people who are in the business of leading us to those learning outcomes. And learning outcomes could be also inclusive of not just academics but behavioral. And so for me, what we should always look out for, I mean, it's like kind of like those three things that that KSA that we always look out for when looking for any outcomes: the knowledge, skills, and attitude. Those three things are key, to assessment. So, what does the teacher know? What are the skills that the teacher has, and then what is the attitude that they have? Because you see, no matter what we've done and we've seen historically, you can be a good teacher. That's content knowledge experts, and you also are able to deliver on your helping children to learn. But your attitude literally can become a game changer. It can be really something that spoils the broth for the organization, for the state, for the state, anything where you find yourself. So that's why we should always like look at those three, points, three areas: the knowledge, the skills, and attitude. And those three things actually also characterize what people look out for generally in the workspace. So do you have the character for it? Do you have the competency, and do you have capacity? Because those are used to call three, those like those big three things that lead to great career development, and improving along that milestone. So those are the areas that I'll talk about. But I also like to say quickly that there's the pre-assessment. There's a pre-entry assessment into the world of teaching, and then there's a in-service assessment that should also be done. And then I even would add a post experience, because then so it's kind of like having an exit interview to know what we can do better, with a group of core teachers who have worked before. So I like to look at it from like full cycle. So at different stages, I do think that these are the core areas that we should be assessing. Basically, where the question around what teacher assessment is just really just checking out what are the expectations, behavioral expectations we have for you, what are content expectations we have with you, and yeah, that's where I leave it at.
Thank you, Rhoda. You know what they say when someone has watered the ground and prepared the ground. Thank you for that. Welcome everyone. That you know that now Rhoda don't water the ground. I'm going to now start putting the spanners in the and I'll start if you understand. Continue to read. If you when I heard what brother says. Saying is pre-assessment. It's good to have an in-service assessment. It's also good to have a post-service. I mean, the time for the pre-assessment and the post-service is very obvious. But the in-service, if you look at the school system, two things I want you to tell us: how frequent should assessment be? And then the second thing is how objective. How do we bring the objectivity so that it's not that me and one woman, that I'm talking about relationships. So me and this lady were going out with this guy, and then it's now time to do the assessment, and the guy went to me. How do I ensure she's not the one putting the nail in my career? Everybody else knows that I'm such a fantastic teacher, you know what I'm saying? But this lady, she's the one that is solely responsible for my assessment. So I think, how can you help? What do you think in terms of the frequency of assessment, and how do we put that objectivity into the assessment?
Okay. No, I'm listening. That's the mannerism, because I don't want to get distracted by looking at the faces and then I miss what you're saying. Okay. So I'd start by saying, what is the essence, of generally, what's the essence of teacher assessment? When I say teacher assessment, assessing teachers, because when I first heard the topic teacher assessment, I was like, is it the teacher assessment of the child, of the student, or is it the assessment of the teacher, or of the teacher effectiveness? But I think from our discussion, I've been able to pin it down to assessing the is the end result. What are you looking at achieving? Is achieving, putting a mark on how effective that is, what results is producing. Is this teacher productive, and to what extent is this teacher productive? And because it invariably impacts how children achieve, okay, right? So it's about measuring influences the teacher has on the productivity of the children or of the students or whoever he or she is working with. So talking about how regular, I think there should be, so that in the different institutions or different organizations, there's a standardized time frame to say, okay, we're going to have teacher assessments or teacher evaluation or teacher appraisals twice every term, or twice or 3 times a year. And it's going to be at the beginning, in the middle of the term, and where work is at the beginning, midterm, and at the end of the term. Okay, and that's ongoing. Now, we also have broken it down into assessing the teacher on a day-to-day basis. And how we do that is by peer reviews. Okay, so you actually are supposed to have a system where teacher is assessed on different platforms. So it could be either assessing by peer reviews, it could be classroom observations, it could be self-reports, it could be through lesson plans. So there are different ways you can assess a teacher's effectiveness. And for me, I wouldn't say there should be a time frame to it. There should be periodic, even if it's week to week, day to day, based on the output. So another thing that could cause a red flag would be, okay, you have observed over time that things are not going the way it should go with a particular teacher, or you're not getting the results you should get from that particular teacher. You're not going to wait till it's time for assessment before you assess that teacher. So ongoing evaluation, ongoing assessment is the way. That way you can, as an organization or as an administrator, support your teacher towards effectiveness. I don't know if I've answered your question, Titi. Yes. With regards to the time frame or how often a teacher.
Yes, with regard to the time frame you have. So I'm waiting to hear about adding the objectivity to the assessment.
Okay, so all right. So being objective, there should be different levels of assessment in such a way that you are able, there should be different levels and there should be chances. So one person alone should not be responsible for assessing particular individual. I mentioned earlier, it's, that review where I on the same level can assess my colleague. Then I have a different plane from my boss or from a senior member of staff. And I can also have an assessment from a junior member of staff. So you can compare assessments and be sure that you're all being fair to you're all being fair to the teacher you're assessing. And this is not just a one-way thing. So you assess me and I assess you, regardless of any bias. So if there's any foul play in any of the assessments, then it can be easily picked and say, okay, this person, assessed you low on this criteria. We're going to need to assess you again. Somebody else, somebody who probably is not with you. So we actually have people come in. As a matter of fact, something we also did was to have across the board review where teachers from another school, another branch of the organization can come in and observe you, and you don't see this person at all. So that's organizations should be able to set up that kind of system where reviews can happen across the board, not necessarily with people that you meet on a day-to-day basis. So that will help the bias.
Yeah.
Or objectivity.
Thank you.
Titi, I really like a quick note, sorry, a point on what Ifyok has said. I think is very beautiful to hear her say it, because when you were asking for benchmark, like timelines for assessments to be done, especially in service, since the focus was on in service assessments, and she says ongoing, and it's true, because you see the results of a bad teacher cannot be even for 1 week, it's detrimental to the class. Just imagine that it's the children we're talking about here. And so whenever a teacher is teaching, either teaching a wrong concept or having a wrong attitude, or teaching, or just having a wrong discipline approach within the classroom, every day it piles up on the child, and the child who is being influenced by this teacher's mistakes, or this teacher's errors, or this teacher's lack of professional expertise. We just can't do it, because teaching or education itself is a living experience. And each time he piles up something that is to the disadvantage of the child who is unaware, So, and that's something that has affected a lot of people. So when you hear people say, I hate math, they don't really hate math. They just hate the experience. And that's what it is. And that's why it's, I totally agree with Ifyok. Should be ongoing peer reviews, mentorship programs, mentoring, appraisals and things like that. That happens week on week, and all the different platforms you mentioned of opportunities for assessment through your lesson plans, through your children's exercise workbook, even the students themselves review assessing you as a teacher is very key. I've often shared how early childhood children are able to assess their teachers, just giving them stickers or smileys to place about their own particular teacher gives you a clear sense of what's happening in that classroom for a group that requires developmental stages to be very solid, including the relationship that they have with their teachers.
Okay.
I would like to speak about bias.
I want to ask safety chick here. Safety chick. If you look back at the teachers you've had, and if you have to assess them and say what were the red flags, because I like what Rhoda said, because it's as if she read my mind. If you look back at the teachers you've had, both the good and maybe both the good, bad, and the ugly, and say from an assessment perspective, what are the red flags? And in your opinion, how can that child's assessment, or what are the elements of the child's assessment that can be put into the teacher's assessment? I know that my child's primary school used to check the notes, and the notes were part of the teacher's assessment, which is very important, because when there was a teacher that was not a very detailed teacher, I noticed that the notes that my son was copying, sure, there was this particular I have to share. There was this particular incident that the answer that he'd written was wrong in the note. So he was revising for an exam. I was just like, but my older son had done this same topic, and I don't think this was the answer. So I just went to ask my son for his note, and let's going to go and look for the note. I found that this my younger son had mixed up the answers in his note. So if I didn't have that my older son's memory to latch on to, he would have revised the wrong thing, and that's how he would have he would have done it wrong. So I think it's important, just look at your own experiences, or even experiences what do you think are some of the red flags, and how can it pick up into the process of teacher assessment?
Okay, so let me just start very briefly with bias, because when Ifyok was speaking, it reminded me of my experience in the airline, because we had to do regular assessment every year, and then there was this particular one where you have at least 3 different supervisors go with you on a flight to see how you handle your duties, just to have a sense of how you actually do your work. 3 different supervisors, and that was really important because sometimes people have biases that they're not even aware that they have towards a particular person. And so if that is the only person that is supposed to assess you, that can get you into trouble, because imagine you have a supervisor who wants, when they ask you a question in an assessment, they expect you to say the way it is in their own heads, right? And that is not really possible, because we all understand something in our own different ways. As long as you're able to communicate in essence, that is what is important, and not reciting the way it's in your head. Because I'm not in your head to know to know exactly how I want to say. So that area of bias must be really, really managed, so that we don't have a case where teachers begin to feel victimized. Now, speaking from my own personal experience, I used to be one of those people too who did not like maths because of my experience, right? But I got to primary 5 in a new school, and the teacher was just so exceptional. He made it easy to, in fact, I was now looking forward to the next set of things, because I did very well as opposed to before, because I was from you see what the students are saying. A lot of them are saying that they connect more when there is more detail, more examples or stories. Then you see that, okay, going forward, we're going to be talking about incorporating these elements into how teaching happens in that particular class, right? So you need to find enough to express their thoughts, because there are some classes. I mean, we all knew that teacher who in his class you dare not say him, because if you say anything, maybe cane will land on somebody and all this kind of stuff. So children were everybody will just comport, let him just carry
Yeah.
So be safe and a relaxed atmosphere. It's so important. Last week, Taoma, one of the comedians, she put up a video about a typical staff room. And if you see the comments on that thread, you could tell that everybody just say, accurate. We had it in our school, Most especially the teacher that was in terror. He would just come in, he's not even asked any question. He already has his cane. So that element of safety, that element of being free, so that you can even learn with peace of mind. I mean, you do not come to my heart attack. So I think those should be added. That feeling of safety, understanding, what makes you learn better. Why do you choose that this particular teacher, you learn more in this teacher's class as opposed to this one? What are the elements used? Is it examples? Is it more detail? Is it practicals? Because again, we have some teachers that are really great at making what they are teaching as realistic and practical as possible. And there are certain children that would grasp that more, as opposed if it's just theory. I have one in my house. He's a computer science student, and in the university he attends, they just do all these notes, and the guy does not like reading in that sense. But just to give it to him in a video, he watches the films of white guys teaching the same things, and he gets it. Like my brother is just so amazing in that area. But then I'm like, okay, so if you get it watching the videos, how about you take what you've learned in this video and see how to translate it? And it's like, no, those lecturers expect you to give them what was written in those in those notes. So he now has to live kind of two lives. When he has to relate with maybe the tech companies, he gives them the American standard, all those kind of stuff. And then when he wants to go back to school, he has to switch his mindset to a particular. Do you see what I mean here? So it's also a challenge.
Yeah, in our current assessment. Oh, I was just about to ask Jude a question, and Jude, Jude went. You're right. You know, I think the input of the child is very key. So we say that when it comes to child, I like a number of things that Ifyok said. The classroom observation is so key. And then you can pick up some of those things. What Rhoda said, when the child is excited, when the teacher is talking, when you notice the interaction is not tense, it's not like teacher, authoritarian, and the slaves. You know that there's something. So I like the fact that even other things about the person's assessment, his report, if they have to create lesson plans, because as much as you would like a teacher that is fantastic in the classroom, you also need a teacher that can do good reports. You need a teacher that can contribute to the lesson plan rather than he's only fantastic in the class that that's an adult with no responsibility, because there are other elements to teaching. He's good in the teaching, but that level of detail required in checking the children's notes, checking their work, and ensuring that the assignments have been done. That's one of the things that came out a lot in online learning. My sister said that's how a few weeks before the exams, which was a few days before the exam, the teacher now came up and said that her daughter had over 60 undone assignments. She was like, what? How can someone have 60
Titi, that's the thing. I was hoping that Jude would have been present. So I imagine what your questions would have been, because technology is an enabler in help in teaching teacher assessments. Because first of all, you are able to, I think it's just a tool, and we should not even be blindsided by that. The fact that it's a great opportunity for us to use technology to also assess teachers. Because again, when the student has that number of 60 undone assignments, what was the teacher doing? And then with the technology, you're able, other people are able to track the number of undone assignments for their class. That also is enough information, data for an institution to be able to assess their teachers, because literally there's a platform that shows everything that teacher is capable of has done in terms of administration in their class. That kind of thing. And even when you submit your lesson plans, or even the mentoring and peer reviews, and so like a qualitative appraisal that is done for teachers, all these things can be easily accessible using technology tools. So I was hoping that Jude would throw some light there for
Honestly,
us.
I had questions ready for Jude, but Jude has escaped them. But I don't want to talk about something. I looked at the assessment. We talked about some of the what I would call the lesson, the teaching. I want to talk about assessment as it comes to pastoral. Because the life of a child has a lot of dimensions, and what Sechik was trying to allude to, when there are certain hang-ups whereby the child learns more visually than auditory, or the child's one of those children that you need to get them to a state of where they are comfortable with the teacher before you can get the best out of them. So I want us to talk about that pastoral, the teacher's role, because I've said the assessment is not only that sitting in class, doing a good job. There's the admin part of the assessment that needs to be done, how the teacher is doing in terms of admin tasks. Now, there's also in terms of pastoral, in terms of care. I remember, I have plenty of stories, but I remember this incident whereby my son was ill for a few days. And he was ill for a few days. And his teacher did not get in touch with us. So he had been ill. It was maybe more than 4 days. So I sent a message. Eventually, I sent a message to the admin in school and all that, saying that he won't be able to come. I want him to be completely well before to school and all that. And I felt that when he recovered, I went and poured out my annoyance to the teacher. And my annoyance was that why didn't you check on your students? Why didn't you send a message? Why didn't you try to reach out? If you have a student absent from class, and I'm not talking about a public school. When it's a public school, I don't understand the dimensions of the size of the class. But the private schools have 17 kids, max 20. If a child has not shown up for 4 days, what the pastoral care that needs to be there. So I would like you to talk a bit about that in terms of pastoral care, teacher assessment with regards, what we term pastoral care. How do we measure that? How do we check that? How do we create a balance so that assessment is not one-sided? How do we create that balance in the teacher assessment?
Okay. All right. So let me start by talking or just listing out a few ways that a teacher can be assessed. So we're talking classroom observations, we're talking pupil feedback, we're talking judgment or assess or supervision from senior lecturers sorry, I don't know if you're hearing the noise in my background.
Nobody knows.
But so we're talking self-reports. We're looking at personal reflective logs. Okay, we're looking at all of those. We're looking at even teacher assignment, teacher portfolios, all of these methods, these different methods put together can help an assessor, can help an administrator to know where this teacher is at and how to help. Because one of the things I press on for teacher assignment assessments is not just to identify where the teacher is missing it. It's not enough to just identify that, but it's taking the step further towards professional and teacher development. Okay, so that's why I really agree with you that this should have come before. So when you do the teacher assessment, what's the way forward? What are we doing with those assessments? Are we taking active steps to help that teacher develop in the areas where he or she is found wanting? So that's one. So going back to how can we, sorry, your question again, you talked about how we can control or ensure that the teacher is actually caring, the teacher is actually doing what he or she is supposed to do. So there was this example or this incident that happened with the teacher. That was why I had to run out yesterday. That was why I wasn't here yesterday. So the teacher is online with children. And she had 12 children in the classroom. And after like 20 minutes into the classroom, you don't see your students. You haven't asked where is the child. The child was on the seat, and all of a sudden, maybe we feel that the child, according to the story, had maybe fallen down, maybe to pick something, maybe wanted to pick something, and the child did not return back to the screen, for example, and the teacher just kept on teaching. Do you understand? Not asking, okay, you have not seen the child. Usually at the end you will take a roll call to say, these are the number of children who started the class, these are the number of children who ended the class with me. This is part of the measures we put in place. And that child is in the hospital as we speak.
Wow.
Because that child leaned over to pick something and fell off the chair. And this is a 4-year-old child. So it's the story is because, and then we had to go back and look at the video because all the classes, all the sessions are recorded, and this child has had that constant leave and come back, leave and come back, leave and come back, and there hasn't been any report around that behavior. So it's not just you delivering information. It's not you just sitting down there and dishing out information. You need to be able to care for these children because they are on this screen for long periods of time. It's beyond you just teaching math or teaching, ABCs and one, two, threes and all whatnot. It's caring for them. Okay, I know we've been online. Can we stand? It's okay. So now this is where your techniques come in. Techniques for engagement in your practice. So, pastoral care in working with children or assessing that level of pastoral care, this is one example. You need to be able to be there. It's okay to shut down a class and say, you know what, we're not doing anything lesson or academics today. Tell me, how are you? You being able as a teacher to decipher when to step back and listen to your children and just be there. So I think administrators should be able to not only look at, say, for example, lesson plans. Is he or she delivering? Is he or she having his or her notes complete? Are the children submitting their assignments? How is that teacher able to relate one-on-one with the child? If you ask a child in your classroom, that's why I will ask my children, how is your teacher? How do you feel about him or her? This is another level of assessment that should happen. As administrators should be able to say, ask children, engage children to say, how assess your teacher and don't take it for granted because these children will have stories to tell you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Ify, for that. Honestly, children have stories to tell, and sometimes you'll be amazed that having a child back is important. And you'll be amazed that it's a tiny thing. Do you know, one day my son came back home and said that he didn't like his teacher. He did something. When I asked him further questions, it was the fact that it was his birthday. And, I think she was, trying to rush on with the online, when other teachers that had done the class, had made a big deal of his birthday. So when he was now lamenting about it, I found that it was just that little thing. I was so amused. But, it was a big thing to him. So important that I was like, maybe she didn't hear it was your birthday. He said, no, she didn't. It was so funny. But KK in the building, let's bring some of the top from under our table. KK in the building. Don't mind me. But KK, before we end, what I want to say is that how do we deal with issues? So issues of, when we're doing the assessment, and I will give you a couple, and maybe you can even give us more. So, after a while, you have some teachers that have stayed for long, and so to speak, have become comfortable, whereby, they don't develop. So, this online learning is one of the things that has helped see a lot of good teachers, experienced teachers, but have not wanted to embrace technology. So why is that when you're doing such assessment, assessments that have, they're not straightforward assessments. Assessment where you feel, okay, we talked about assessment where the initial people did not give the person, in your mind, objective assessments, or assessments where the assessments are very flowery. Because remember that what Ify said, is that when we do an assessment, it's like with children, the idea is the outcome. And from me, how do you ensure that the outcome is not outcome? When I mean only one outcome is that, it's a promotion or salary increase. Because same with children, the final outcome is not really a grade. I tell my son, yes, so you didn't get that, but have you improved? Has there been improvement? And this grade that you're also worried about, you can aim for it later. So when we look at our assessment, how do we ensure that in all of it, we're not carried away one by making the assessment about the final end and the progress? How do we also ensure that, people that have 3/4 of it, but there's one quarter that they need to do, and just some of the various complexities that can come into this teacher assessment. Over to you.
Okay, so the first thing about assessments is that they are, there's a reason for an assessment, and you have assessments that are not valid, right? So for us as educators, when you are assessing children, the assessments are tied, in sync with the objectives, the learning objectives, right? So for teachers, for example,
you must have certain things that you've listed out, which is why when you're doing like evaluation. So when a teacher, of course, is a new teacher, you may not necessarily have, you may not have done an evaluation formally, but you've had an interview session. So during that interview session, you would have found out that, okay, you know what, based on what I can see, XYZ are places where you need development in terms of your career or in terms of personally, right? So you must have those goals for each teacher, and those teachers need to be aware, right? Such that you then have a program of action that says this is where you are and this is where you need to be, and you put a timeline to it. And both of you, both you, the teacher lead or coach, or whatever it is that your institution calls it, with the teacher in question, sign off on it. And then you need to have you know KPIs, to be honest, that show you a path to know that, okay, if this happens, then it's likely that the next one will happen. And again, the teacher needs to be in control of it, because as we mentioned yesterday, at the end of the day, development is your business, right? So teacher assessments must lead to something. They must lead to growth, either personally. If I see that you're not great with time management, how do you need to organize yourself? So it must lead to something. It must lead to further learning. It must lead to further development, or it is a useless and pointless exercise, which can then become punitive, right? And you don't want it to be punitive. The reality is you need the person growing, which leads me quickly to program evaluation. When you evaluate your program, consistently. Now, program is what are we delivering? How are we delivering it? Are we meeting our objectives as a school? Do our parents understand what we are doing? Well, that's program evaluation. It's different from assessment. It's whole program evaluation. Now, if you have a problem with teacher assessment, you would have a problem with program evaluation, because it means that the teachers may not necessarily be doing what needs to be done to increase the quality of the program that you're delivering. So it's really important that teacher assessments are tied to particular goals, particular objectives, because those objectives are now your program evaluation objectives. Yes, so absolutely, I agree 100% with and Ethiop. She's been so vocal about this. And as she was speaking, she talked about teaching for engagement. So again, you need to have several different areas that you are assessing. It needs to be very clear. The thing about assessments is that it must be clear. If your assessments are not clear, then it's possible that there's already a bias, and there can't be a bias. So there are 4 pillars of assessments, right? Purpose, validity, reliability, and value. Those are the 4 pillars of assessment. If you do not have a purpose for the assessment, already it is not, it's not valid. It's an invalid assessment. Then of course you must have validity. Why are you doing it? Is the time okay for it to be done? Is the other person aware that it is being done? That is validity. And then you must have reliability. How are you doing it? Is it consistent with something, or you are just doing it? And it must be something that if you're doing it for one teacher, you necessarily need to have to do it for several teachers who are on that same area. If not, then you don't have a clear measurement metrics. I know that we're supposed to be rounding up. And then of course, value. What value has that assessment brought to the table, to your program, to the teacher, to the children, to everything? Yes, so those are really important when you talk about teacher assessments.
Oh, okay. I'm about to close, but I want to drop this last, point and see how we do. What's the place of teacher feedback in parent feedback in teacher assessment? Especially when let me say 2 sides of the coin, whereby the parent feedback is not objective. It's passionate but not objective. So there are examples of it all over in the class. 2 children are fighting in the class. The teacher, does something for the one that is the aggregate, and the parent of that child now says no. There's cases that you must sack this teacher. The teacher did this. That's the fact what the teacher did was right. And then there's also the feedback of also when the feedback from the parents is utilizing value into the the teacher's assessment. So how do we balance that? Because parents can sometimes be can I say ask for the moon and be unrealistic? Even when a child is in your house, things can happen. How much more when a child is in a public place? So you need to put that balance. So what I'm just saying is, how do we balance parent feedback in teacher evaluation, knowing that in the end your parents are kind of your key customers? They can go about bad mouthing your school, example, they can go about instigating people to remove their children, if they feel they're not heard. So my question is, how do we balance that as we end the show? How do we balance parent feedback with teacher assessment? If you're, well, let us say then KK and then we'll end the show. So if you're, what are your
Okay. Okay, so yes, lots and lots of experience with that. But what I want to say here is this: it's very important to get parent feedback. I do not joke with it. As a matter of fact, that constant daily feedback, I am constantly asking and guiding the people I work with. Ask for feedback personally, because this will help you. Now, when it's the feedback that's going to management and all that, what I'll say here is take the feedback, look at it. There has to be a system to weigh whatever feedback you're getting from the parents and see, is it consistent? That feedback you're getting on that teacher, is it consistent? Is there a consistent complaint? Not from one parent, not from two, not from three, not from this term alone, but previous terms or previous years. This is one concern we've had with this teacher from different sources. That's one way. And is there proof? So if it's a complaint, I would always ask, there has to be proof. And also listen to the teacher, get both views, listen to the teacher, listen to the parents. I would not say go outright to reject whatever feedback it is, but my suggestion would be always have the back of your staff, because at the end of the day, they are your people. Yes, we are, the customers are the parents and all of that. But if you do not have your staff, you do not have your parents, you do not have students. So it's important that your staff knows that you've got their back. Now, whether they are good, whether they are right or whether they are wrong, the fact that you have their back, even when they're wrong, you can say to them, look, this is only to bring out the best in you. This is only to bring the better teacher out of you. So feedback, negative or positive, the staff must know that you've got my back and that this is for your own good, whatever it is, whatever the outcome is. That's one. I want to talk a little. I want to land. Okay. Let me leave it there then. Let take over. Yeah.
I will take this comment.
If you I know, right? There are many things to say. So let me start by saying that feedback is generally always a subjective measure, because it is based on my experience, my thoughts, my feelings, my perspective. So that's feedback. It usually is subjective. However, there must be some level of objectivity in it. So when you're thinking about using feedback as a measure, for us, it is complaints. How much complaints are we getting from this classroom? Are the complaints increasing or reducing? What is the quality of complaints? Are they linking to something we have noticed prior, which is like Ifyok said, and then you can then use it as an objective measure and look at it critically and say, okay, is there fire here or is it just smoke? Right? So again, it's subjective, the parent's point of view. And if a parent is not happy about something, they're not. Potentially, that is a threat to your organization because they might leave. So you want to take every complaint, I won't say seriously, but you need to give it the attention that is deserving, that it deserves. Yeah, and that is extremely critical. Now, there's something that we do in my organization. We can kill each other inside, but like Ifyok said, outside, it's a united front. So we'll tell you something like, but you just say that, let me investigate it. Let me find out a bit more about this and get back to you. We will not say yes, we will not say no, but we will go and find out. And then we can kill each other outside and then come back and say, oh, you know what, we realized that this actually did happen. And this is what we have done to ensure it doesn't happen again. Thank you so much for being our eye. Thank you so much. End of the story. So that's how we use feedback. Yeah. So thanks.
That way the parents are not they're happy to come with you, because the day something happens that you need to know, if they don't have that impression that you listen to them, they're not going to come to you. They just say, okay, she's not going to listen anyway. So
absolutely.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. But I love that note that let's put up a united front. It's so important. Don't put your teachers under the bus. It's so important for the school, because it also builds your reputation among the parents. They know that you're not a pushover and any small thing. So you go, it's the balance. I think it's wonderful. You said so much about teacher assessment. Thank you everyone that joined us. You follow Olatunde Adebayo, all of you that joined us today. I hope I'm not Chidima Jim Guinea. Sorry, I hope I haven't specified your name or anything like that. Thank you for joining us on the Good Morning Show. But that's all we have time for. We can go on this topic for another God knows how long, but we just have to say bye-bye. So from all of us on Good Morning Education Show, it's always
a good morning
on the Good Morning Education Show.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and bye-bye from all of us.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.